My name is Adeline Cross, and I am 33 years old. 2 weeks ago, at my sister's $250,000 wedding on a $12 million estate in Darien, Connecticut, a young man in a black vest handed me a gray plastic badge that read, "Limited Access Guest." My mother leaned close enough that I could smell her perfume, and whispered, "That means there is no plate for you, Adeline." I had spent 3 years saving $12,000 for the envelope in my purse. 3 years of skipped vacations, of coffee made at home, of wearing the same winter coat until the lining came loose, and I sewed it back myself. I wanted to give my sister the most generous gift I could afford. I wanted, more than anything, to prove that I belonged to my own family. Instead, I got a laminated square of plastic that told me I was not welcome at the dinner. So I walked to the gift table at the edge of the reception tent. I found my envelope under a stack of silver boxes. I slid it into my purse, and when my mother caught me and demanded to know what I was doing, I said 5 words that turned her face the color of ash. "I am taking it back. Picture it. 200 people in the softest gold light you have ever seen. A string quartet, crystal on every table, and me, in a navy dress from a clearance rack, standing at the gift table with an envelope in my hand, and my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my teeth. Before I tell you how I got there, and what happened after, I want you to stay with me, because this is not really a story about a badge. It is a story about the exact moment a person stops asking to be loved and starts deciding to be free. This is the only time I will ask. If any of this feels familiar to you, stay until the end, because the end is the part that changed my life. To understand why I did what I did, I have to take you back. Not 6 months, all the way back. The Cross family looks flawless on paper. My father, Raymond, is a retired structural engineer who spent 31 years designing bridges and parking structures for the same firm. My mother, Loretta, worked as a bank teller for a few years before she decided that being a homemaker suited her better, especially once my sister started collecting trophies. And then there is Celeste, 3 years older than me, Wharton graduate, private equity associate at a well-known firm, the daughter who made my parents' holiday cards worth mailing, and me. I am a staff accountant at a mid-size freight and logistics company in Jersey City. I live in a studio apartment in Long Island City that costs $1,900 a month and looks out onto the concrete ramp of a parking garage. I went to community college first, then transferred to a state school because my parents told me they could not possibly afford to send 2 daughters to expensive universities. It is a funny thing about money. They could not find it for my tuition, but they found the down payment for Celeste's condo in Tribeca 3 years later. Growing up, I learned to measure love in square footage. Celeste's bedroom was almost twice the size of mine. Her closet had built-in shelves and a little bench. Mine had a metal rod and a handful of wire hangers. When she graduated high school, my parents rented a hall and hired a caterer and a man to run the music. When I graduated, my mother said we would do something small, and then the summer went by, and we never did anything at all. But the thing I remember most is the photograph on the mantle in the living room. It is a family portrait from a Christmas years ago. My parents and Celeste stand in front of the tree, glowing, arms around each other, like people who had just been told wonderful news. I am not in it. When I asked about it once, my mother said the frame was too narrow to fit all 4 of us, so they had simply cropped me out. For years, I told myself that was nothing. A frame. A size. I was wrong, and it took me most of my life to admit it. The first time I truly understood my place in that family, I was 18. It was my high school graduation. I had worked for that day for 4 years, honor roll every single semester, volunteer shifts at the public library, a part-time job, scooping frozen yogurt so I could buy my own dress for the dance. I was not at the very top of my class, but I was proud of what I had built with my own 2 hands. The ceremony started in the early afternoon. I crossed the stage, shook the principal's hand, took my diploma, and smiled for a camera even though I already knew no one in my family was standing behind it. My parents were not there. They were 300 miles away, touring a graduate program with Celeste, who was a junior in college and thinking about her next degree. My mother had told me the week before that Celeste's future was time-sensitive, and that I would have other graduations. I never did. That was the only one. The only person who came for me that day was my aunt Colette, my mother's younger sister. She closed her garden nursery in Ridgefield for the afternoon, drove 2 hours, sat in the 3rd row, and cheered so loudly when they called my name that a teacher turned around to look. Afterward, she took me to a small Italian place and slid a card across the table with $100 folded inside. "Your mother did the same thing to me once," she said, cutting into her food without looking up. When I opened the nursery, she was too busy with your grandmother to come see it. Not for 1 hour. I did not know what to say. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You are not missing anything, Adeline, she told me. They just do not know how to see you yet. But I've spent a long time waiting for them to see me, and I am starting to think some people never learn how. Then she said the thing I would carry for the rest of my life, the thing I did not understand until much later. Family is not the people who share your blood. Family is the people who show up. Remember that. I did not know, sitting in that restaurant at 18, how much I would need those words. Half a year before the wedding, my phone lit up with a message in the family group chat, a chat I had been added to but almost never spoke in. Celeste had posted a photograph of her left hand, a 4-carat cushion cut diamond throwing light against the railing of some rooftop restaurant. The message read, Spencer proposed. Wedding planning starts now. Spencer Ashcombe IV. I had met him exactly twice. Once at a family dinner where he spoke for most of an hour about his golf handicap, and once at Celeste's birthday, where he did not acknowledge that I existed. His family was old money out of Darien, Connecticut. His father, Prescott, had founded and then sold a hedge fund. His mother, Rosalind, sat on the boards of 3 charitable foundations. They were the kind of people who used the word summer as a verb. My mother's reply appeared within seconds. My baby. This is the happiest day of my life. My father sent a single thumbs up. I typed and deleted 3 different messages before I settled on, Congratulations, Celeste. I'm so happy for you. No one answered, not a word. And I sat in my studio, looking at the parking ramp outside my window, and told myself that this time would be different. That is the sentence I would repeat to myself, like a prayer, for the next 6 months. This time will be different. 2 weeks later, the invitation arrived. Thick cotton paper, heavy as a coaster, the lettering pressed into it in gold. A custom monogram with the letters woven together. A small insert informed guests that the wedding would be held at the Ashcombe family estate, and that rooms had been reserved at a nearby hotel at the discounted rate of $520 a night. I held that invitation in both hands, and I made a decision I would come to think about for a long time. I would give my sister the most generous gift I could manage. I would prove, once and for all, that I was worth as much as she was. I opened a savings account the next morning and named it, simply, the wedding. I did not know that my mother had a plan of her own. It took me 3 years to save $12,000. That may not sound like much to some people, but when you earn $58,000 a year before taxes and you live within reach of New York City, every dollar has to be argued with. I stopped buying lunch. I made my coffee in a dented pot on my own stove. I did not take a single trip, not even a cheap weekend somewhere close. When the seams of my coat finally gave out, I threaded a needle and sewed the lining back in rather than replace it. I wanted to hand my sister something that meant something. I wanted to stop being the disappointment I was so sure they saw when they looked at me. 3 weeks before the wedding, I went to my bank and asked for a cashier's check for $12,000. The teller, a young woman with a kind face, asked if I would like an envelope for it. I said yes. Then I went home, sat at my little kitchen table, and wrote to my sister a letter. Dear Celeste, I wrote, congratulations on your wedding. I know we have never been as close as sisters are supposed to be, but I hope this helps you and Spencer build a beautiful life together. Wishing you every happiness in the world. Love, Adeline. I put the check and the letter inside, sealed the envelope, and wrote both our names across the front. Then I did something I still cannot fully explain. I laid the envelope, the check, and the letter out on the table, and I took a photograph of all of it with my phone, and I saved it to a folder. Maybe some part of me already knew. Maybe some part of me had always known. That same night, my mother called. Her voice had that bright, artificial shine it took on whenever she wanted something. Adeline, have you bought your gift yet? I was thinking you could just send the money to me now, and I will fold it in with our gift, so it all comes from the family on one card. I paused, and something in me went very still. I would rather give it myself, I said, at the wedding. There was a silence on the line, and then, fine, whatever you want, and she hung up without saying goodbye. The signs were all there. I simply did not want to read them. Here is something I did not learn until later, from a friend I will tell you about soon. When someone asks you to hand over a gift so it can be counted as theirs, they are not asking to help. They are asking to erase you from the record. But I am getting ahead of myself. 2 months before the wedding, Celeste hosted her bridal shower at a hotel in the city. I was not asked to help plan it. That honor went to her friends from business school and to 2 cousins on my mother's side. Cousins I had met perhaps 3 times in my life. cousins whose families had money. I was seated at a corner table with strangers, friends of friends, the kind of guests you invite, so the room does not look empty. During the toast, my mother stood and spoke about Celeste. Her school, her career, her brilliant future husband. She spoke for what felt like 10 minutes, and she did not say my name a single time. Not even a thank you to Adeline for coming. But the moment I will never forget happened in the restroom. I had stepped away to fix my face, because I had been quietly crying and no one had noticed, when I heard two voices from the far end of the room. My mother and my Aunt Deb, my mother's other sister, talking in that low tone people use when they think the tile is on their side. "Thank goodness you did not make her a bridesmaid," my aunt said. "Can you imagine? The Ashcombs would have asked what she does for a living, and then where would we be?" My mother laughed. It was a light, easy sound. "I know," she said. Celeste understood right away. "Rosalind is very particular about appearances. We cannot have anything distracting." I stood in front of the mirror with the water running, and I looked at my own face, mascara smudged under one eye, and I turned that word over and over. Distracting. That is what I was to them. Not a sister, not a daughter, a distraction that might spoil their climb into the Ashcombe world. I should have left the shower that very minute, but I did not. I told myself it would get better. I told myself the wedding day would be different. I want you to remember that word, distracting, because it comes back. 1 week before the wedding, an email landed from the wedding coordinator. The subject line read, "Rehearsal dinner, final guest list." I scrolled through 40 names, bridesmaids, groomsmen, both sets of parents, aunts, uncles, cousins from the Ashcombe side. A handful of Celeste's college friends who had flown in early. My name was not there. I read it 3 times, sure I had missed it, and then I called my mother. "Mom," I said, "I did not get an invitation to the rehearsal dinner." "Oh," she said, and there was a pause I could have driven a truck through. "Adeline, the rehearsal dinner is just for the wedding party and immediate family. Spencer's parents are very strict about the numbers." Something cold settled behind my ribs. "I am not immediate family," I said. "You know what I mean," she said. "It is not personal. The Ashcombes are hosting, and there is simply no room." I pulled the email back up on my screen. "Celeste's friend Brooke is on this list," I said. "She is not family. She is a bridesmaid, Adeline. Do not make this difficult." I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask why a woman my sister had known for 4 years mattered more than the sister she had grown up beside. But I already knew the answer, and the answer was that my mother had chosen a long time ago. "Okay," I said quietly. "I understand." "Good," she said. "We will see you at the ceremony." And she was gone. I sat in my apartment for a long time after that, looking at the envelope on my table. $12,000. 3 years of my life. And I had not even been invited to the dinner the night before. And still, God help me, I told myself the wedding would be different. 3 days before the wedding, my Aunt Colette called. I could hear the snip of her shears in the background, the sound she made when she was thinking, trimming stems at the nursery. "Adeline, honey, I heard about the rehearsal dinner." I sighed. "It is fine, Aunt Colette. It is just logistics." "It is not logistics," she said, and her voice had an edge I rarely heard. "It is your mother being your mother. And I need to ask you something, and I need you to really answer it. Do you actually want to go to this wedding?" The question caught me off balance. "Of course I do," I said. "Celeste, my sister." "Celeste is your sister," she agreed, "but that does not mean she behaves like one." "And Loretta," she stopped herself. "Your mother and I grew up in the same house, Adeline. I know exactly what she is capable of." "What do you mean?" I asked. She was quiet for a moment. "At your mother's own wedding," she said. She seated me at the last table, next to the door where the caterers came in and out. She introduced me to your father's family as her sister, the one who does flowers. Not by name, not as family, just the one who does flowers. I did not know what to say. "Your mother does not hate you," Aunt Colette went on. "It is almost worse than that. She simply does not see you as useful to her plans. And right now her plan is to impress the Ashcombes, and you do not fit inside the frame. So what do?" I asked. "That is not for me to decide," she said. I heard her set the shears down. "But I want you to know one thing. I will be at that wedding, and if anything happens, anything at all, you will not be alone." I felt tears sting my eyes. "Thank you," I whispered. "Family is the people who show up, sweetheart," she said. "Not the people who share your name. Remember that?" I did not know, when I hung up, how soon I would need to. The night before the wedding, my phone rang at 11:47. It was Tessa Blackwood. Tessa and I had been best friends since college, and by a coincidence that still amazes me, her event coordination company had been hired to run my sister's wedding. She had been careful about it, keeping the friendship separate from the job, but that night her voice was shaking. Addie, she said, I have to tell you something, and I need you to stay calm. I sat up in bed. What is it? I was doing the final review of the seating chart tonight, she said. She stopped. Your name was on table 2 weeks ago, family of the bride. But when I looked at the chart today, your name is crossed out with a pen, and there is a note written next to it. My heart began to pound. What does the note say? I asked. She took a breath. It says, guest receives limited access badge. No meal. I could not breathe. Who wrote it? I asked. I do not know for certain, she said. But Addie, I recognized the handwriting. Her voice dropped very low. It looks like your mother's. The room seemed to tilt. No meal. Limited access. They were not just cutting me from the rehearsal dinner. They were cutting me from the whole reception. Tessa, are you sure? I asked. I took a photo of the note, she said. I am sending it to you right now. My phone buzzed against my ear. I pulled it away and opened the image and stared at handwriting I had known my entire life, the same neat cursive that had signed 33 years of birthday cards. Guest receives limited access badge. No meal. My mother had not forgotten me. My mother had planned this. Carefully. On paper. In ink. She wanted my money, and she did not want me. I did not sleep at all that night. But somewhere around dawn, staring at the ceiling of my studio, I stopped feeling like I was drowning, and I started to feel something steadier. By the time the sun was fully up, I knew exactly what I was going to do. Before the sky was even light, I did one more thing. I called a friend from college named Nadine Alcott, who had become a family and estate attorney, and I told her everything, and I asked her the only question that mattered. If I hand over a gift and it is never opened, never deposited, never accepted, is it still mine? Nadine did not hesitate. A gift is not complete until it is delivered and accepted, she said. A sealed envelope on a table is not a completed gift. If you decide to take back your own check before anyone has cashed it, that is your money, Addie. Not theirs, yours. I wrote her words down on the back of an old receipt, and I put the receipt in my purse, and it felt, strangely, like putting on armor. I stood in front of my closet, the same small closet with the metal rod, and I chose carefully. A navy dress I had bought on sale 2 years earlier. Simple. Not the kind of thing that asks to be looked at. I did my own makeup in light, neutral tones, nothing that would streak if I cried. Then I sat at my kitchen table and gathered what I had. The screenshot of my mother asking me to send the money early. The photo of the seating chart note that Tessa had sent. The photograph of my envelope with the check inside. And Nadine's words on the back of the receipt in case anyone tried to call me a thief or a liar. I put my phone in my clutch beside the envelope and I called my Aunt Colette. I am still going, I told her. I figured you would be, she said. Are you all right? I do not know, I said. But I need to see it through. I need to watch them do it to my face. She was quiet for a moment. I will be there, she said. I will stay close to the gift table. If you need me, just look in that direction, and I will be there. Thank you, I said. And Adeline, she added, whatever you decide to do today, do not apologize, do not explain, and do not give them the pleasure of watching you break. I took a long breath. I will not, I said. And I picked up my clutch and walked out the door. Here is a good place to stop for 1 second and tell you why I did not just stay home, because that is the question everyone asks. If they treated you like that, why go at all? And the honest answer is this. I had spent my whole life leaving quietly, slipping out the side door of my own family so no one would have to look at me. I was done leaving quietly. If they were going to erase me, they were going to have to do it while I stood in the room. The Ashcombe estate looked like something out of a magazine. White columns, manicured hedges cut into shapes, a sweeping curve of pale gravel lined with cars that each cost more than I made in a year. I had taken the train up from the city and a taxi from the station, and the driver whistled when we came through the gate. Some party, he said. Something like that, I answered. 2 staff members in crisp black vests stood behind a registration table, draped in white, flowers, and tall vases, a neat stack of badges arranged in alphabetical order. The woman ahead of me gave her name and received a gleaming gold badge, which she pinned to her dress and carried through the entrance without a second thought. Name, the young man asked me. Adeline Cross, I said. He ran his finger down his list, then reached below the table, and when his hands came back up, he was holding a gray badge. Not gold, gray. The color of the parking ramp outside my window. The color of something you would rather not look at. 3 words in plain black letters. Limited access guest. Ma'am, he said, not quite meeting my eyes. This badge gives you access to the ceremony area only. The reception tent requires a gold badge. I looked at him. I am the bride's sister, I said. Something crossed his face that might have been sympathy. I am sorry, ma'am, he said. I am only following the list. And before I could answer, a hand closed around my elbow. I turned. My mother. in a pale rose gown that had surely cost more than my rent, diamonds at her throat, a smile that stopped somewhere well short of her eyes. "Adeline, darling," she said, "let us talk privately for a moment." The young man looked relieved. My mother steered me toward a cluster of rose bushes, out of earshot of the table. "Do not make a scene," she said, still smiling for the benefit of anyone watching. Anyone looking would think we were having the most pleasant chat. "What does limited access mean?" I asked. My voice came out level. I was proud of that. She glanced over her shoulder and lowered her voice. "It means," she said, "that you may attend the ceremony, but there is simply no room for you at the reception." The words landed like cold water down my back. No room. Spencer's parents have a great many important guests, Adeline. Business associates, board members, people who matter to the Ashcombs. We could hardly ask them to give up seats for. She stopped herself, but I heard the end of the sentence anyway. "For someone like you could have told me," I said, "before I spent $300 on a train ticket and a dress. Would you have come?" she asked. "No," I said. "Exactly," she said, and she patted my arm the way you would pat a child who does not understand the grown-ups. "Just stay for the ceremony, show your face, leave your gift on the table, and then you can go. Celeste will understand." And I looked at her, really looked at her. The woman who had raised me, who had missed my graduation, who had cropped me out of the family photo, who had laughed about me behind a bathroom door. And now she stood in her borrowed diamonds asking me to hand over $12,000 for a wedding I was not allowed to attend. "You want my money," I said slowly, "but you do not want me. Do not be dramatic, Adeline," she said, and something in my chest clicked into place, not breaking, setting, like concrete. "Okay, Mom," I said, and I smiled. "I will not make a scene." She exhaled with relief. She had no idea what was coming. I played the part perfectly. I nodded along while she finished. I let her guide me toward the ceremony. A stunning garden with rows of white chairs and an arch dripping with roses and greenery. I took a seat in the very last row, at the far edge, where no one would look. My chair was different from the others. Cheaper, a plain folding chair, while the first 10 rows had cushioned seats with tall backs. I sat there and watched my family prepare for the happiest day of their lives. My father stood near the front, making small talk with Spencer's father, a silver-haired man in a suit that probably cost more than my car. My mother moved through the crowd, laughing, touching arms, performing that trick she does, where she makes each person feel like the most important one in the room. Everyone except me. Then Celeste came out of the main house, in a cloud of white, a designer gown she had mentioned by name more times than I could count. Thousands and thousands of dollars of fabric and beadwork that made her look like a woman on the top of a cake. She was beautiful. I will give her that. The ceremony began. Vows were exchanged. Tears were shed, most of them by my mother, who dabbed at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. When Celeste and Spencer kissed, 200 people rose to their feet. I stayed in my seat. Afterward, the photographer gathered the families for portraits. Both sets of parents, the wedding party, relatives I had never met. "Anyone else from the family?" the photographer called out. My mother shook her head. "No," she said, "we are all here." I watched them arrange themselves under the arch, smiling like the perfect family they had always wanted to be. And I thought, not for much longer. The ceremony ended in a shower of white petals and a swell of strings. Guests began drifting toward the reception tent, an enormous white structure that glowed from the inside like a paper lantern. Through the open sides, I could see chandeliers hanging from the ceiling, tables draped in ivory, centerpieces of imported flowers that cost more than my weekly groceries. I stood at the edge of the garden, watching my family disappear into that golden light, and not one of them looked back. For a moment, just a moment, I thought about leaving, taking my envelope, walking back down that pale gravel drive, and never speaking to any of them again. It would have been the dignified thing, the quiet thing. But I was finished being quiet. A hand touched my shoulder. I turned to find my Aunt Colette, her silver hair pulled back, wearing a simple deep red dress that somehow looked more regal than anything my mother had on. "How are you holding up, sweetheart?" she asked. I held up the gray badge in my palm. "They do not want me at the reception," I said. "I know," she said. Tessa told me. She did not look surprised, only sad. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "I am going to get my envelope back," I said. She nodded slowly. "The gift table is near the east side of the tent," she said. "I walked past it earlier." She squeezed my hand. "I will be close by. You will not be alone." "Thank you," I said. "Adeline," she said, holding my eyes. "Whatever happens in the next 10 minutes, do not apologize, do not explain, and do not give them the satisfaction of seeing you break." I took a deep breath. "I will not," I said. She stepped back and I turned toward the tent. The gift table was waiting. I was halfway to the entrance when a staff member stepped into my path. He was young, maybe 22, with an apologetic look. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said. "May I see your badge?" I held up the gray card. His face fell. "I am sorry, ma'am," he said. "This badge does not grant access to the reception. Gold badges only." "I understand," I said, keeping my voice calm. "But I am the bride's sister. I only need to." "I am really sorry," he said, and he did look genuinely uncomfortable. "I have strict instructions. No exceptions." Over his shoulder, I could see the reception in full swing. Waiters with trays of champagne. Guests laughing and mingling. My parents near the head table, accepting congratulations as if they had personally achieved something magnificent. And then Celeste walked past, still in her gown, flushed and radiant, and her eyes met mine through the crowd. For one single second, I thought she might stop. I thought she might tell the young man to let me through. I thought she might remember that I was her sister before I was an inconvenience. Instead, she looked away and kept walking. She did not even slow down. The staff member shifted awkwardly. "Ma'am, if you would like to wait outside, I can." "It is fine," I said, and I stepped back. "I am not trying to get in." He looked relieved. I turned and walked toward the east side of the tent, where a long table covered in silk held a small mountain of beautifully wrapped gifts. No security, no supervision. Just a decorative sign in gold script that read, "Blessings for Celestis and Spencer." My envelope was in there somewhere. $12,000 that my family fully expected to collect, and did not think I deserved to be thanked for in person. It was time to take it back. Let me pause here for just a moment, because this is the part where I have to be honest with you about who I was before that day. I was a person who apologized for taking up space, who said sorry when other people bumped into me, who had spent 33 years believing that if I could just be good enough, small enough, useful enough, my family would finally make room. Standing at the edge of that tent, I finally understood the truth. There was never going to be room, not because the tent was full, because they had never built a chair with my name on it. So I would take back the one thing of mine that was still in the building. That and my dignity. The gift table was even more elaborate up close. Ivory silk spilling to the grass, white peonies in crystal bowls, boxes wrapped in heavy paper with coordinated ribbon, the kind you see behind glass in expensive stores. And there, near the left corner, half hidden beneath a larger package, a plain white envelope with familiar handwriting, from Adeline Cross. I had written those words myself 3 weeks earlier, at my little kitchen table, hoping this gift would finally make my family see me differently. What a joke. I glanced around. The staff were focused on the entrance. A few guests lingered nearby with champagne, but no one was watching the gift table. Why would they? Who steals from a wedding? I am not stealing, I reminded myself. I am taking back what is mine. My aunt appeared at the edge of my vision, standing beside a trellis of climbing roses, and she gave me the smallest nod. "You are not alone." I took a breath and walked to the table, unhurried, like a woman simply admiring the gifts. My fingers found the envelope at once. One corner was slightly crumpled. Someone had picked it up, looked at it, and set it back down. They had seen my name. They had known I gave generously, and they had still decided I did not deserve to be in the room when it was opened. I slid the envelope into my clutch in one smooth motion. That is when I heard heels striking the flagstone behind me. "Adeline." My mother's voice, sharp and confused. "What are you doing?" I had expected this. Part of me had wanted it. My mother stood 3 feet away, a champagne flute in her hand, her made-up face frozen somewhere between shock and fury. Behind her, a few guests had turned to watch. Not many, but enough. "I asked you a question," she said, lowering her voice to a hiss. "What are you doing at the gift table?" Taking back my envelope, I said, "You." She stopped, processing. "You cannot do that." "I can," I said, keeping my voice as calm as my aunt had taught me. "The gift has not been given yet. The envelope has not been opened. Legally and morally, it is still mine. I had a lawyer confirm it this morning." "This is ridiculous," she whispered. "Put it back this instant." I did not move, and from somewhere behind me came a familiar voice. Tessa, murmuring into her headset about a problem with the cake display, walked past without meeting my eyes. But as she passed, her hand brushed mine, and she pressed a folded square of paper into my palm. A copy of the note. The handwritten note she had photographed the night before. "Guest receives limited access badge. No meal." In my mother's own hand. I closed my fingers around it and slipped it into my clutch beside the envelope. Evidence. Proof that this was not an oversight, not some mistake, but a decision made in ink. Loretta. A new voice, older, cultured, with the unmistakable ease of old Connecticut money. "Is everything all right?" I turned. Rosalind Ashcombe, the mother of the groom. Silver hair. Pearls at her throat. eyes that clearly missed nothing. My mother's face went pale. "Everything is fine, Rosalind," she said. "Just a small family matter." But Rosalind's gaze had already moved to me, to the gray badge on my dress, to the clutch I was holding just a little too tightly. She said. "How interesting." The next 30 seconds felt like an hour. Rosalind Ashcombe watched me with those sharp, patient eyes. My mother stood frozen beside her, visibly calculating how to save the moment. In the background, the quartet played something soft while 200 oblivious guests went on celebrating. I looked at the gray badge hanging from my dress, then at the tent, glowing gold, full of people who had been told I was not important enough to sit among them. My mother took a step toward me. "Adeline, please," she said. "Do not do this here. Not today." "Why not today?" I asked. "Because it is your sister's wedding," she said. "Is it?" I said, and I tilted my head. "Because from where I am standing, it looks a great deal more like your wedding. Your chance to impress the Ashcombes, your opportunity to prove the Cross family belongs in their world." Rosalind's eyebrow rose, just slightly. "That is not fair," my mother said. "Fair," I almost laughed. "You asked me for my gift money 3 weeks ago. You wanted it early so you could fold it in with yours. So Celeste would think the generosity came from you. And when I said no, you decided to punish me. That is not," my mother started. "You crossed my name off the seating chart," I said. "You wrote the instruction for me to get a limited badge. You made certain I could not even sit down to eat at my own sister's wedding." My mother's face had gone from pale to gray. Rosalind's expression had shifted into something cold and evaluating. "I have the note, Mom," I said, and I touched my clutch. "Tessa found it. Your handwriting, your instruction, no meal." And for the first time in my life, I watched my mother run completely out of words. That is when Celeste appeared at the entrance of the tent. "What is going on?" she demanded. The crowd parted for my sister as if she were royalty. She swept toward us in her white gown, her face flushed with what I first mistook for joy, and then recognized as rage. Spencer trailed behind her, looking lost. Guests had begun to stop their conversations to watch. "Adeline," Celeste said, her voice like ice. "What are you doing at my gift table?" I drew the envelope from my clutch and held it up so everyone nearby could see it. "This is my gift to you," I said, "a cashier's check for $12,000. A murmur moved through the watching guests. Even in that crowd, $12,000 was a number that made people pay attention. "I saved for 3 years," I went on, keeping my voice steady. "I skipped vacations. I made my coffee at home. I sewed my own coat back together rather than buy a new one, because I wanted to give you something that meant something. Because I thought that maybe this time you would treat me like family." Celeste's expression flickered. "Surprise, maybe, or discomfort." "Adeline, this is not," she began. "But I was not invited to the rehearsal dinner," I said. "I was not allowed to be a bridesmaid, and when I arrived today, I was handed this." I held up the gray badge with my other hand. "Limited access, no meal. Your own sister was not allowed to eat at your wedding." The murmuring grew louder. I could see guests exchanging glances. This was not the kind of thing that was supposed to happen at a wedding like this. "That was," Celeste looked at our mother. "That was for space reasons. Spencer's parents had so many guests." "Mom wrote the note herself," I said, and I met my sister's eyes. She put it on the seating chart, her handwriting, her decision. She wanted my money, and she did not want me. Rosalind Ashcombe stepped forward. "Is this true, Loretta?" she asked. The color drained from my mother's face completely. I have never seen my mother look so small. She stood there in her expensive gown and her borrowed diamonds, surrounded by the very people she had spent months trying to impress. And she had no idea what to say. "Rosalind, I can explain," she managed. "I would love to hear it," Rosalind said, her voice polite and sharp enough to cut glass. "Because from what I am gathering, you denied your own daughter a seat at her sister's wedding, while still expecting her money." "It was not," my mother said. "It was not like that." "Then what was it like, Loretta?" Rosalind asked. My mother's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. More guests had gathered. The quartet had stopped playing. Even the waitstaff had paused to watch. Spencer stood beside Celeste, looking as though he wished the ground would open. Celeste grabbed my arm. "Adeline, stop this," she hissed. "You are ruining everything." I pulled free. "I am not ruining anything," I said. "I am taking back something that belongs to me." "You cannot just," she started. "I can," I said, and I held up the envelope one more time. "This check has not been deposited. This gift has not been given. And after everything you have done, everything you allowed Mom to do, I am keeping it." "You are being ridiculous," Celeste said. "No," I said, and I looked at my sister, really looked at her, maybe for the first time in my life. "For 33 years," I said, "I have been the ridiculous one, believing that if I just tried a little harder, loved a little harder, gave a little more, You would finally see me as your equal, but you never did, and you never will. I slid the envelope back into my clutch, so I am done trying. I turned to walk away, and my mother's voice cracked out behind me. Adeline Cross, if you walk out of here, you are no longer part of this family. I turned back. Mom, I said quietly, I never was. The silence that followed was enormous. 200 people stood frozen, champagne flutes half raised, conversations abandoned, every eye fixed on the scene by the gift table, and I watched their faces change from curiosity to shock to something that looked almost like respect. My mother broke first. You ungrateful, selfish, she started. Loretta. Rosalind Ashcombe's voice cut through the air like a blade. Perhaps this is not the moment. My mother whirled toward her. Rosalind, please, she said. You do not understand. I understand perfectly, the older woman said, and her gaze was arctic. You excluded your daughter from her own sister's wedding reception. You denied her a seat, a meal, and basic dignity, and you expected her to quietly hand over $12,000 all the same. She paused. That is not a misunderstanding, Loretta. That is a calculation. Spencer shifted on his feet. Mom, he said to Rosalind, maybe we should. We should have been told the whole situation before we agreed to host this wedding, Rosalind said, not raising her voice. Because she did not need to. The Ashcombes value family, Loretta. All of a family. Not only the members who photograph well. My mother looked as though she had been struck. Celeste stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. This is my wedding day, she said. This is supposed to be the best day of my life. And something shifted in my chest. Not guilt exactly, but something close to it. I know, I said quietly, and I am sorry it has been disrupted. But I will not apologize for refusing to be invisible anymore. I turned to my Aunt Colette, who had been watching from the edge of the crowd. She walked to my side and put her arm around my shoulders. We are leaving now, she announced, to no one in particular. Have a lovely reception. And together, we walked toward the exit. Behind us, I heard my mother begin to cry. The chaos erupted the moment we cleared the rose garden. I could hear Celeste's voice climbing toward a shriek. My mother's sobs. Spencer trying to calm everyone while directing guests back toward the tent. The quartet had started up again, something bright and desperate, as though they could restore order through music alone. Do not look back, my aunt murmured. Keep walking. But I did look back, just once. My father was standing at the edge of the tent, watching me leave. His face was impossible to read, somewhere between shame and sorrow, and something I could not name. For a moment, I thought he might come after me, that he might finally, after 33 years, choose me. He did not. He turned and walked back to my mother's side. My aunt squeezed my shoulder. I know, sweetheart, she said. I know. We reached the front of the estate, where a taxi was already idling. I had called it that morning, before I left my apartment. Some part of me had known I would not be staying. You planned ahead? My aunt said, impressed. I have learned that no one else plans for me, I said. We climbed into the back seat. The driver, the same man who had dropped me off, caught my eye in the mirror. Short party, huh? He said. Something like that, I said. As the car pulled away, I turned to watch the estate shrink in the rear window. The white columns, the clipped hedges, the tent glowing gold against the afternoon sky. Somewhere inside it, my family was dealing with the wreckage of what I had done, and I felt, to my own surprise, almost nothing. Not triumph, not satisfaction, just an enormous, exhausted emptiness. What happens now? I asked. My aunt took my hand. Now, she said, you start your life. We were a quarter mile down the road when I heard shouting. The driver slowed as a white SUV with the estate's logo pulled up alongside us and then cut in front, forcing us to stop. Before I could react, the back door of the SUV flew open, and Celeste came running toward our taxi and thousands of dollars of ruined white tulle. Adeline, stop, she cried. You have to come back. She was breathless, desperate. You have to fix this. I rolled down my window. There is nothing to fix, Celeste, I said. Yes, there is, she said, her voice breaking. Rosalind is furious. Spencer's father is asking questions. Mom will not stop crying. That sounds like a problem for Mom, I said. Not for me. Adeline, please, she said, and she leaned against the car door. And for a moment, she looked like the little girl who used to climb into my bed during thunderstorms, back before the house taught her which of us mattered. I will make it right, she said. You can come back to the reception. I will tell them there was a mix-up. A mix-up, I said, and I stared at her. You think this was a mix-up? It was complicated, she said. Mom wanted my money, I said. And you wanted to marry Spencer without anyone asking awkward questions about your accountant sister. That is not a mix-up, Celeste. That is a choice. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I am your sister. Yes, I said, and I felt my aunt's hand tighten around mine. And you chose to let them treat me like I was not. Celeste opened her mouth, closed it, She had nothing. Go back to your wedding, I said. Your guests are waiting. And I rolled up the window. Drive, I told the driver, and he drove. My phone began to ring before we reached the main road. Mom, Dad, Celeste, Mom again. Unknown numbers that were probably relatives calling on someone else's behalf. I silenced all of them and looked out the window at the Connecticut countryside rolling by, the stone walls, the houses with 3-car garages. You are allowed to feel things, my aunt said quietly. This is not nothing. I know, I said, but I cannot feel them yet. Not while I can still see that house in the distance. My phone rang again, and this time it was my father, and some old childish hope in me answered it. Adeline, he said, and his voice was thin and strained. Please come back. Your mother is not handling this well. She is not handling it well, I repeated. I know how this looks, he said. Do you? I asked, and I felt the anger rise up through the numbness at last. Dad, they gave me a gray badge. They told me I could not eat. They wanted my money and not my presents. And you stood there. You let it happen. Silence. I did not know about the badge, he said. You did not ask, I said, and my voice cracked and I hated it. In 33 years, you have never once asked how I was being treated. You let Mom handle it. You let Celeste be the important one, and you never, not once, protected me. Adeline, he said. I am not coming back, Dad. Not today. Maybe not ever. You cannot just cut off your family, he said. Watch me, I said, and I hung up. My aunt did not say anything. She reached over and gently took the phone from my shaking hand. You can have this back later, she said. When you are ready. The tears did not come until we reached the train station. My aunt had insisted on riding back into the city with me. We sat in a quiet corner of the platform, surrounded by weekend travelers who had no idea that my entire world had just collapsed and rebuilt itself in the space of 2 hours. I actually did it, I said, and my voice sounded strange in my own ears. I actually took the envelope and walked out. You did, she said. They are going to hate me, I said. Some of them wills, she said, pulling me close. But, sweetheart, they were not treating you with love to begin with. You cannot lose something you never had. And then the tears came. Not the delicate camera-ready tears my mother could summon on command, but ugly, heaving sobs that shook my whole body. I cried for the graduation they had missed, for the photo they had cropped me out of, for the 33 years I had spent believing that if I just loved them hard enough, they would finally love me back. It was never going to be enough, was it? I whispered, no matter what I did. No, honey, she said, stroking my hair the way she had when I was small. It was not. Some people are not capable of seeing the worth in others. That is a failing in them. Not in you. The train came. We boarded in silence. As the Connecticut green gave way to the gray edges of the city, my phone buzzed one more time, and I glanced at it. A text from Tessa. Rosalind pulled Celeste into a private room after you left, it read. No one knows what was said, but Celeste was crying when she came out. I think things are about to change for your family. I read it twice. Then I put the phone away and closed my eyes. That was the moment I left my sister's wedding. But the story does not end there, because what happened in the weeks that followed, with my parents, with Celeste, with Rosalind Ashcombe, I did not see any of it coming. My phone did not stop buzzing for 3 days. I turned off the notifications, but I could see the counter climbing each time I glanced at the screen. Dozens of missed calls, more than 100 texts, voicemails I could not bring myself to play. The Monday after the wedding, on my lunch break, I walked to my bank and voided the cashier's check. The teller, a different one this time, asked if something was wrong. Change of plans, I said. I am keeping the money. That evening, my Aunt Colette called from the nursery, shears snipping softly in the background. I have been hearing things, she said. Rosalind Ashcombe had a very long conversation with your mother after you left. And your mother called me this morning to blame me for encouraging you. What did you tell her? I asked. I told her I did not encourage anything, that you made your own choice, she said. Then she paused. I also told her that if she had treated you with basic dignity, none of this would ever have happened. How did she take that? I asked. She hung up on me, my aunt said. So, about as expected, I almost laughed. And Celeste, I asked. My aunt's voice softened. From what I hear, the honeymoon has been tense. Rosalind said something to her privately. No one knows exactly what, but there have been tears. Spencer has been trying to smooth it over, and Rosalind is, well, Rosalind. She does not forget. I sat with that in silence. Part of me wanted to feel vindicated. Mostly I just felt tired. What do I do now? I asked. You move forward, sweetheart, she said. You have spent 33 years waiting for them to change. Now you stop waiting. I looked around my tiny studio, the cramped kitchen, the parking ramp beyond the glass, the empty spot on the table where the envelope used to sit. I think I can do that, I said. And for the first time, I believed it. 2 weeks after the wedding, 3 things happened. First, my promotion came through. I had been working towards senior accountant for almost 2 years, and the timing felt almost cosmic. My boss, a controller named Gwen Talbot, who had no patience for drama of any kind, called me into her office on a Tuesday. "You have earned this, Adeline," she said. "Whatever is going on in your personal life, you have never once let it touch your work." She slid a folder across the desk. A 12% raise, a new title. You start next month. I thanked her, and I managed not to cry until I reached the restroom. Second, my mother left a voicemail. I had been deleting them unheard, but something made me stop at this one. Her voice was different. Not the sharp, controlling tone I knew, but something thinner, almost fragile. "Adeline," she said, "I know you are not listening to these, but I need you to know that Rosalind spoke to me. About family, about how we treat each other." A long pause. "I do not agree with everything she said, but I have been thinking, maybe we should talk." I saved the voicemail. I did not call back, not yet, maybe not for a long time, but I did not delete it either. Third, my father sent an email. Not to the family group, just to me, private. "Adeline," it read, "I do not know how to say this, so I will just say it. I am sorry. I should have protected you. I should have spoken up. I did not, and that is a failure I will have to live with. I am not asking you to forgive me. I am only asking you to know that I see it now. I see what we did. If you ever want to talk, I am here. Dad." I read that email 7 times. I did not answer it, but I saved it to a folder I labeled, "Maybe Someday." 1 month after the wedding, I wrote the letter I had been composing in my head for most of my life. I sat in a little coffee shop near my apartment, the kind of place that makes a good flat white, and I stared at the blinking cursor for a long time before I began. "Dear Mom, Dad, and Celeste," I wrote. "I am not writing this to hurt you. I am writing because I need you to understand something. I am not angry anymore. Anger takes energy, and I have spent far too many years giving my energy to people who did not value it. What I feel now is closer to clarity. For 33 years, I wrote, I tried to earn a place in this family. I was quiet when I should have spoken. I gave when I should have kept. I accepted treatment I would never have tolerated from a stranger because I believed that family meant enduring pain. I was wrong. Family means choosing each other. It means showing up even when it is inconvenient. It means treating someone with dignity, especially when no one is watching. You did not choose me and I cannot make you, but I can choose myself. And that is what I am doing now. This is not a door slamming, I wrote. It is a door that finally has a lock. If any of you ever want a real relationship, one built on respect and not obligation, you know how to reach me. Until then, I wish you well. I truly do. Adeline. I copied my Aunt Colette, and then I hit send. The replies came within hours. My mother's was defensive. Celeste's was tearful. My father's was 2 words. I understand. I did not answer any of them. Instead, I finished my coffee, paid, and walked out into the autumn sun. I had a life to build. 6 weeks after the wedding, I moved into a new apartment. 1 bedroom, an actual closet. A window that looked out onto a small park instead of a parking ramp. The rent was higher, but I could afford it now, partly because of the promotion, and partly because I had $12,000 that was no longer going anywhere else. My Aunt Colette drove down to help me unpack. We spent the whole day arranging furniture, hanging curtains, and arguing cheerfully about the right home for the little collection of succulents I had started keeping on the sill. "This one needs more light," she said, holding up a particularly stubborn one. "And this corner gets the good afternoon sun. Trust me, I have been growing things for 40 years. I let her win that one." Around sunset, we took a break on my new balcony with 2 glasses of cheap wine. Below us, children played in the park while their parents scrolled through their phones on the benches. Ordinary life, ordinary joy. "I brought you something," my aunt said. She handed me a framed photograph. It was me, at my high school graduation, clutching my diploma, smiling through the tears no one else had seen. I remembered that exact moment, right after I crossed the stage, right after I understood my parents were not in the audience. "You kept this," I said. "I have had it on my desk for 15 years, she said, smiling. I figured it was finally time it hung somewhere it belongs. I stared at the girl in the frame, younger me, hopeful me. The me who still believed things would get better if she just kept trying. "Thank you," I whispered, "for everything. For showing up when they would not." My aunt put her arm around my shoulder. "That is what family does, sweetheart," she said. "Real family. Family is the people who show up." I hung the photograph above my new desk that night, and for the first time in my life, I looked forward to coming home. I have had a great deal of time, since then, to think about why my family did what they did. My mother grew up in a house where status was the only currency. Her parents measured worth in titles and tax brackets. When Celeste married into the Ashcombe family, my mother saw her own redemption, a chance to finally belong to the world she had always envied from the outside. I was not part of that picture, not because she hated me, but because I did not fit her vision of who the Crosses could become. There is a name for this, I have learned. Living through your children because you feel you fell short yourself. My mother could not climb the ladder on her own, so she attached herself to Celeste's climb, and anyone who threatened the story, even her own daughter, became something to be managed. Celeste was not cruel, exactly. She was complicit. She grew up believing the world owed her more because she achieved more, and when my mother suggested quietly shrinking my role, my sister did not object because objecting would have cost her something. People who benefit from an unfair system rarely question it, and my father was the peacekeeper, the man who kept the peace by never taking a side, which in practice always meant taking my mother's side. His silence was not neutral. Silence is a choice. It is the choice to let it happen. But here is what I have finally learned. Understanding why someone hurt you does not mean you have to keep letting them. Compassion and boundaries can live in the same house. I do not hate my family. I even pity them a little. They are trapped in a home built on conditional love, and they cannot see the walls. But I am not trapped anymore. My father and I have spoken twice since then, carefully on my terms, with clear lines drawn about what I will and will not accept, and he has honored them, which is more than I expected. Celeste has not truly changed, not yet, and I have stopped waiting for the sister I invented in my head to arrive. If she ever does the work, the door has a lock, but the lock also has a key, and I am the one who holds it now. That is the difference. For the first time, I am the one who decides who comes in. If you are still with me, I want to leave you with the one thing it took me 33 years to understand. You are allowed to love people and still walk away from them. You are allowed to protect your peace. You are allowed to choose yourself. And you are never, not once, obligated to stay at a table where they will not feed you. Family is not the people who share your name. Family is the people who show up. If this story reached something in you today, take one small step toward your own gift table, whatever that means for you. And then tell me in the comments what 5 words you would have said. I read everyone. Take care of yourself out there. No one else will do it quite the way you can.